Hi, hello, and welcome to LX2 Codependency Coaching Podcast. I am Stella. We are recording on a gorgeous Thursday morning. I was so grateful to have a nice and slow morning, no clients. And so I took my time getting up, getting things ready, and here we are. So I was thinking about this idea of the things we say in extreme language, right? And so often I speak about always or never or I'll do anything for you or I do everything. Those are ways of using extreme language that is not super helpful to a conversation, certainly because we don't do all things all the time. But there was this phrase that kept coming to, especially in the last couple of weeks, was like, no matter what. And I was thinking about the idea of no matter what in terms of like the relationships we have, and certainly in familial relationships or in romantic relationships or even friendships, right? No matter what, this is the thing, right? And it's almost like always or never or everything or anything. But really, I was thinking about how often we are considering the what. We are considering the limits to what we are willing to do. And so I don't know if you guys know this about me. I get fixated often on certain genres or certain things. And most recently, I have been on a cult kick, watching lots of documentaries on cults, currently reading a book about a woman who got caught up in a cult. She's an actress. And listening to her story and the motivations for her staying in this situation was interesting, and it continues to be interesting. And people who find themselves in these extreme situations that normally they would not, choose consciously. If somebody said, hey, do you want to join a cult? People are like, no, why would I do that, right? But there's this level of indoctrination and certainly, brainwashing and all the things that happen, and it's systematic. But you get to that place then when you defend something no matter what. And so yeah, I've been on this crazy kind of holdout of paying attention to these extreme things. And as you guys know, I very much enjoy the human experience and observing it in terms of pattern recognition and behaviors and the feelings associated, and really thinking about how we hold on to this idea of I'm going to stick this out no matter what, when we start to think about how we hold on to certain relationships or dynamics or even thoughts about ourselves, right? The hill will die on, 10 toes down, I'm going to do this thing, forever, right? That's another extreme language. But really thinking how people get stuck in situations and circumstances and certainly continue to then behave in a way that is not helpful for their own best interests, right? And the no matter what was sticking in my head, and I was like, what is that? How often do I or have I used that phrase or have felt that way, that no matter what, I'm going to do this thing? And I was thinking about it and really recognizing that, as you guys know, I talk about change often because change happens, whether change is happening to us or we are consciously choosing change. And part of what needs to happen is figuring out how to expand our lens or point of view on a situation, circumstance, ideology, whatever it is, to be able to see past this particular moment and certainly our commitment and loyalty to this situation. And as we evolve, grow, learn things, see things from a different perspective, that what changes, right? If this particular thing happens, then perhaps I'm not as committed to this situation, circumstance, relationship, whatever. And really thinking about the what, right? So I was having a conversation with someone who was talking about an argument they were having with their partner, and they were working on using their tools and skills of being able to be empathetic and understanding. And I can imagine how that feels and, being curious, tell me more about that. And then immediately they wanted to defend their position or their behavior or their situation. And I was like, do you think that that is the opportunity to take to defend or to give your perspective or to widen the lens or give, a different point of view? I said, because when someone is trying to express their feelings, and certainly when they've been feeling or holding on to these feelings for a long time, and then it comes out sometimes with judgment or accusations or, calling people out of their character or whatever it is, that may not be the time to defend your position. That may not be the time to be like, I've done all of these things, because that's when we get to that extreme language, right? And so rather than taking that opportunity in the middle of conflict to then defend yourself or defend your position or do whatever, I have often said, to clients and to people in general, that may not be the time, right? Especially when they are very committed to their perspective or their emotional experience in that moment, right? It might take some time, because a lot of times people want to fix things and in the moment resolve the conflict because it's uncomfortable, right? So if someone is expressing their feelings or talking about their experience and you want to defend your perspective or your position, or like I said, expand their lens, that might not be the time. It might be the opportunity to be, again, curious, sit back, try to understand, and then come back and say, this is what I heard you say. I acknowledge that, this was my behavior. Can I talk to you a little bit about where that was coming from, right? That might be a conversation after the fact rather than in the melee of conflict, because, again, when people think about, I'm committed to this no matter what, and they get really committed to this is their position, stance, thought pattern, ideology, whatever, they're not going to listen to the alternative. So I'm listening to this book, and I'm thinking about this person's perspective and talking about her choices to stay in this situation and then defend it to other people who were calling it out as a cult. And she was like, no, that's not what it is. That's not how, it's weird that people see it that way. Like, we're just a family. I so desperately want a family, and I want this one because this is the one that keeps showing up for me. However, there are these things that continue to happen that are giving me clues and indications that this might not be the thing for me. But once we commit to it, and especially in ideology, right? Cults are interesting because they fall in all different situations and different kinds of leaders, charismatic leaders, all the things. But a lot of times people are coming into it with a lack or feeling as though they need something to fulfill them or make them feel whole or make them feel seen or whatever it is. And that is the motivation. And that's what keeps people stuck in situations where they do then sacrifice parts of themselves or try to fit in to keep that feeling, right? As I've spoken about often, and certainly in the book, Best Intentions, the Things We Do for Love, we think about what drives connection. It is our human innate necessity to be connected to another person. And it's curious to me because I speak about attachment style often. I speak about, how we feel seen and secure and valued in our relationships. And it's curious how people, especially in a family situation, because again, back to that idea of belonging, back to that idea of safety and security, I want to stay in something because that's where I feel supposedly safe or protected or part of something. And when we get to that place of now you have to comport yourself, behave in a certain way, or not do certain things, or you'll be kicked out or ostracized, then we start to defend it no matter what, right? And I'm fascinated by this idea. And I tried to think about different parts or times in my life where I'm like, I am committed to this no matter what. And then the what happened. And then I had to make different choices where I had to recognize, okay, here's the what. Here's the part where it's a bridge too far to continue to sacrifice myself or whatever is happening. And so I have to recognize, and this is where the change comes in. It is important to recognize that I am a growing, changing, evolving human, consciously for the most part, to integrate new thoughts and ideas, to be willing to open and widen my lens to understand other perspectives or circumstances. That's not to say that I will, step away from my ideology or my belief system. But when it comes to certain things, like, it's curious to me when people start to emotionally hoard, for example, where they're starting to cherry pick those negative ideas or negative feelings and be like, this is what always happens. This is who I am. This is, what I deserve, what I'm worth, whatever. And so they start to hold on to those negative ideals because it keeps them safe. I do understand that part of emotional hoarding, and there's a whole episode on it, but where we pick those negative things, hold on to them, and make them our reality as the only and absolute reality. Because if I were to allow myself to have good or positive things, then that could be taken away. That could potentially hurt me. That could potentially, put me in a vulnerable position. So if I stack these ideas of, this is what I deserve, this is what always happens, I'm not going to have anything better than this, this is just how people see me, whatever it is, if I hold on to those things, then I will be able to feel safe, quote unquote, or secure in people don't approach me. People aren't coming, to give me good things. Like, every job I have, these things happen. Or in every relationship I've had, these things happen. Again, in every, right? And so I'm going to hold on to this ideology no matter what. I'm going to hold on to this concept or this feeling, and I'm not going to allow for the possibility of something else because this keeps me safe. And so when we have someone in our life who holds on to those ideologies or ideals and those thoughts, it's really difficult to then crack that perspective, even just a little bit, to widen the lens and create some alternatives to, or at least some nuance to that perspective. It's curious and interesting to me when people come into my office and they are, again, 10 toes down. This is the truth. I will die on this hill, right? That this is the way it's supposed to be. And usually it comes down to like a relationship that they're afraid to lose, or, a family situation. I often ask, like, where do you feel you're most authentic? And they're like, in this situation with this person, like, this is where I feel seen the most. Okay. And then, we kind of talk about that a little bit and break it down a little bit more. And it's like, but is that, because it sounds like if you only do these things, then you can stay part of this situation. Or if we don't talk about these things, then you can stay in this situation. I've spoken about it before in that idea where people just like sweep it under the rug, and then before you know it, you've got an elephant in the room because there's a giant pile under the rug. But that's the what. That is the part where we have to look at those things, even if they're unpleasant, even if they're uncomfortable, and start to recognize that might be a bridge too far. That might be too much of a situation or circumstance or relationship where I don't want to continue sacrificing myself or behaving in this way. I ask people often, like, what is your fear? What are you afraid of? If you were to change something or say something out loud or talk to someone outside of this situation, what is the fear? And the fear comes down to loss. The fear comes down to I won't belong anymore. I will change who I am, and I'm really attached to this particular version of me, right? It's also interesting when people then come away from something or have, a season away from this situation or circumstance, whatever it is, and then try to go back to it and see if they fit. I've spoken about my own experience of being the oldest of 6, going, months, years, a very significant amount of time hanging out with my whole family all in one space. And then when I go back into it, I often feel myself drawn to that leadership role or that, because it's anxious. I get anxiety where I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'll just behave in a way that I'm used to behaving. I don't do it anymore because I don't hang out with more than 3 of us at a time. But even when I have in the past, like, it's interesting because when I take a step back and go, okay, that's not who I am all the time. And it does not fit anymore to go back to a version of me that is not part of my piece. It's not part of who I'm trying to be. It's not part of the me that I've really worked hard to build and create. Now, does that mean that I will sometimes go back into that behavior? Absolutely, because I'm a human being, and that default setting is pretty well, it's a well-worn path, right? And I speak to people often, especially when they are working on changing their behavior, certainly building a level of self-respect and dignity, feeling as though they are worthy and deserving, they can feel it, right? They start to behave in a way that is more comfortable for them, more authentic for who they are, and really feeling comfortable in that role. And then something happens and their default setting shows up and they're like, I don't understand why I keep going back to doing these things or staying in this situation or talking to this person again. What is it about me that needs to self-sabotage or, mess things up when things are going well? And I say to them, again, with grace and compassion, recognizing that that is a well-worn path, that default setting that has been, integrated into a lot of who we are and how we function, that's still there. And so you have to compassionately, with grace, look at, who do I want to be? Is it that version of me, or who do I want to be moving forward? That's the what, right? No matter what is, okay, here's the what, and I get to evaluate, is this still who I want to be, how I want to show up? Is this relationship still working for me, right? The level of detachment and active conscious choice that it takes to move and change is identifying and questioning the what on a regular basis. It's being able to go, okay, here's the what, right? And if it's that evaluative process of pros and cons, if it's that concept of, looking at what is the juice worth the squeeze, there's your opportunity to really identify who you want to be, where you want to go, what relationships do you want to have, how do you want to show up in the world today, right? And all the versions of you prior to now. And we look at, little you, teenage you. I was talking to a new client recently and I was like, what is the earliest memory that you have, right? And so they shared the memory and then they were like, I don't know how I got stuck there. That's a weird memory to have. I'm like, without judging it, that's just a memory that you have, right? And really recognizing like there's all those little nuggets and pieces of how we identify how we got into something. Knowing the path of how we got in is how we're going to get out, right? How we're going to change something. A lot of these documentaries are talking to people who have gotten out of cults and situations where they had lost themselves, or they were abused, or they felt very stuck, or they felt like, there's nothing for me beyond this because I don't know how to get out, right? And so as we look at how you got in and recognized what your fear was, recognized what kept you in a situation or circumstance, in a job that you hated for so long, then you can figure out how to move forward. Then you can figure out, how do I change this? A lot of us get stuck. A lot of us struggle with making a decision to move past a situation or circumstance. And so when people come into my office, I'm not invested in anything other than supporting you through this moment, right? Whether or not you leave your job, whether or not you leave your relationship, whether or not you change your circumstance and relationship with your parents or whomever, I'm not invested in that outcome, right? I'm invested in, how do I support you through this to meet your highest goal, to figure out what you need for you. And it's curious to me, because humans are curious, how people are then able to create the path one step at a time, moving in the direction of where they want to be. Sometimes it's getting through just whatever really hard thing is right in front of them. And then sometimes it's like, okay, here's the shitstorm, right? I talk about the shitstorm often. Here's that time where everything is falling apart. Everything is coming at once. It's like all of these things happen. And I'm drowning, right? I'm figuring out, flailing around, trying to figure out how do I just make it to tomorrow, which is a helpful skill, right? How do you just make it to tomorrow? But as we continue to talk about and process through it, it's interesting because of the way that I schedule therapy. I like 4 back-to-back sessions, build you up with tools, kind of look at the path, do the thing, and then go to every 2 weeks, see how you're doing between sessions. And if we need to tweak something or change it, then we go to monthly and then we're done. Like that monthly piece is maintenance. That's where you have actually built the scaffolding to move forward and get out of it. Part of what you did was look at the what. Part of what you did was recognize, okay, I am feeling more confident, that dignity and self-respect. I am feeling like I can move forward. And as I check the people around me, recognizing where can I be my most authentic? Where can I be vulnerable and feel safe? Where can I say what my truth is and people are accepting and they value who I am in this situation, right? We are looking at all of those things all the time, and it's helpful to recognize when you feel stuck, what are you saying to yourself? What are you prioritizing in terms of your values or your beliefs about a situation or circumstance? And if you want to change it, or if change has happened and now you need to kind of figure out as you're building who you are, figure out what the what is. All right. So I am in this really interesting season where things are moving and changing, but also very much, secure and stable. Grateful all the time, but also recognizing that there are moments where, our emotional experience is based on one thing can like tip us off into, a dark rabbit hole where we're just like thinking about every terrible thing that's happened before now. And so what I'd like to do for me, and as I teach my clients, is to tie off on gratitude, is to make sure that I am securely attached to the things that, even momentarily things that are going well or that are good or that, at least that shit show's not on fire right now. Most of the time, even in session, right, I will have people look around at the life that they have created and acknowledge that they have made it through those really hard and tough things, that they will and continue to have the skills and tools to be able to evaluate the what. All right, there's your nugget. I am going to enjoy the rest of my day, my afternoon, and my weekend. It's graduation season, and so lots of people are graduating from high school or from college or from 8th grade, kindergarten, and really recognizing that, there are termination points in our experience, and then we move forward, right? And some of us can do it relatively effortlessly, and some of us really struggle with that detachment or letting go or acknowledging, the change or the difference. Give yourself a little bit of grace. Be kind to my friends and my clients and my listeners and my people. Be kind to yourself, because all of it's going to turn over and be different tomorrow. I often say that is a tomorrow problem. So control what you can right now, fact check it through, check out what your what is. I'll talk to you soon.